Bulabeats sound would be...
The sound of Bulabeats is
funky, electronic, soulful.
There's breaks in there, there's hip hop, there's jungle and the massive style of jungle.
Ragga, breaks, bass, ska.
I guess hip hop, reggae, funk.
Yeah, fun, party music, just good vibes.
Ska, ghetto funk, new funk.
The 130 break tempo into jungle.
Some of the old school and hip hop samples.
Trance and techno and house.
The word I would describe madness. It really just is out there.
To use the industry terminology, it's a mad bastard sound.
And yet it's always had its own kind of unique individual sound.
Ghetto funk, bass funk, just party music with basically the people don't give a fuck. Yeah, I suppose the reason why I started a label was basically because no one else had put out my music, number one. Number two was I really into like the whole idea of DIY ethos, you know, like punk bands started their own labels, funk labels, soul labels, they all did their own thing. All the rave scene, they all started their own labels, so I thought, you know, fuck it, I'm going to start my own label and fuck everyone else. So I made an album called Funky 5 years ago. Well, I made it on my laptop and in the studio, so I wasn't that proficient in the studio at that stage, so it was very kind of basic album. So I pressed up the CDs myself and sent it out to a lot of music magazines thinking, this is it, I'm on to a winner, I'm going to be signed. The lads used to say to me, oh, Jay-Z sold CDs from his boot, oh Jay-Z, and I said, yeah, I'm fucking on to a winner, and never heard anything back, obviously. But then one day I was reading an international DJ magazine, a kind of a posh DJ magazine, and there it was, Funky 5 years ago, 10 out of 10 in the break section as one of the most forward thinking albums. After that then I tried to get Bulabeats kind of secured as a proper label, so I was in contact with distribution labels over in England, and they go, oh yeah mate, we'll sign you. How many artists have you got? And he's there, 2? And he goes, no, you need 5, 6.
We were both using the same producer and studio.
And I was just flat out trying to find different Irish producers that no one was into the music that I was into. And he said, oh, this lad I'm working with, and he pressed play and he played the ragga thing, and I was just give me that number now.
I was working with Spooky at the time. We were throwing ideas and tracks back and forth, and he told me about John.
Got his number, rang him. I'm sure that he thought he was getting signed to Island Records or something because I met him in the Hilton.
He sent me a text saying I might be a little bit late because I'd just been banned for 2 years for driving. So I just was thinking, Jesus, who is Spooky? Hook me up with here. This guy's a little bit wild.
I had to get 2 buses up because I had a little mishap with the guards the week before, so I wasn't able to drive.
I soon began to realise everything with John took a different stance than normal. So he comes down, we had a coffee, we chatted about stuff. He was into the same kind of music as myself, and at the time I didn't really know anybody else here that was releasing music of that sort of that style. So
he signed on the dotted line straight away, borrowed €1,000 and pressed up 500 records, and away we went. It did very well on all the jungle charts. There was no one else doing what we were doing, especially in Ireland, and then we were getting a lot of love from people all over the world saying they were playing our record, so we felt really buzzed.
We set up a breakbeat label called Breakdown Records, which was again doing vinyl and digital.
And he said I could get distribution off some lad I know in England, so everything went through. I made this track, The Market Street Hustle, we put it out, it sold massive amounts, it was everywhere.
I guess 10 years ago actually bumped into Johnny Pluse on a hazy night at A-Skills in the pod, and he was dishing out his first album, Funky 5 years ago.
I met Johnny in a local bar. We were at a gig. I started doing the visuals for some of his gigs and stuff. Johnny had known that I was interested in music production.
There's not a huge outlet for this music in Ireland, and Bulabeats were the obvious choice for my kind of sound.
Which kind of suited to what I was doing at the time, which was a lot of breakbeat at a radio show on Radio Nova doing breaks.
We put out our my first release on Bulabeats, and it just has been kept going from then.
And I think that was our start as well, the Dirty Dubsters. Our first platform was through Bulabeats, and that was how we kind of progressed and gave us our foot in the door and getting a distributor and the sort of a platform to release our music on as well.
Yeah. Nice diggy, dirty dubsters. Excuse me, Mr. Officer, who? Me, Mr. Officer? Alright, calm down, don't shoot me, Mr. Officer. Truthfully, Mr. Officer, do I really fit that description, or does it just suit me, Mr. Officer?
So a lot of the press we've got and support from the label was actually in Ireland, from the likes of Mark Kavanagh, Rakes, Club Mix and The Star. He supported all our releases and gave us a lot of hype when we needed it. And John Gibbons on Spin 1038, who was actually an EDM DJ, he played a lot of our stuff and supported it and did some remixes in the early days of Bulabeats. So it's good to get some homegrown support as well. And then a lot of stations worldwide and in Europe and the BBC and a lot of the internet stations like NSB and Breaks FM and stuff like that.
I remember plucking up the courage to knock on the door, and I said to the engineer who was in there at the time, I said, listen, can you make an introduction to this guy? I'd really like to talk to him about the sound, because I think some of it could transfer into what I'm doing in terms of the radio show and what I would like to do in the future with production, because it was all very fledgling for me in terms of production at the time. So immediately I was dragged in by the scruff of the neck, thrown in front of Johnny, who it turns out was as casual about things as me. And we got on really, really well. And again then, when I moved to commercial radio with Spin 1038, Johnny featured heavily on my show and on commercial radio then by extension, which I think probably helped put him in the shop window a little bit.
When Bulabeats came along 10 years ago, I suppose it stood out for me because it was a hip-hop label amongst a sea of Irish techno, trance and sort of house labels and producers making what was then, I suppose, the commercial mainstream kind of dance sound. So for someone to come along and do a hip-hop label in the first place was something that obviously grabbed your attention.
What really cemented the relationship with Johnny Pluse and by extension Bulabeats was probably the remix I did for his track The Market Street Hustle, which did really, really well. In fact, the remix got to, I think it was number 7 on the UK download chart, and that's kind of pre-downloads being what they are today. There was still a lot of hard copy and physical sales then.
I remember one time a friend said to me, he said, look at this link on YouTube, and it was like New York Fashion Week, and they were walking down the catwalk to the Market Street Hustle, and there was like magazines. We went on tour in the Czech Republic.
This is what the middle of nowhere looks like. In the middle.
Welcome to Opava.
Welcome to Opava.
Great DJ gig here. Rocking.
It's in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Well, the gigs were good. They were a good experience. We got drunk a lot and met actual fans and signed copies of the Market Street Hustle stuff. Yeah, I went to Malawi in Africa to DJ at the Lake of Stars Music Festival. I just thought to myself, sure, I'll go over, play the gig, but I thought I could get a hotel room over there when I got there, but there was none available. So basically, I arrived in Ethiopia on the way with a bag full of records. I had about 200 records carrying around Africa in a big bag, and a little super value bag full of clothes.
It's beautiful Malawi. There's my taxi driver. We're heading off the Lake of Stars.
Yeah, we went to the Czech Republic on the tour. We got booked to play in this place.
We had Saturday night we had a big show, a big festival show, and on the Friday we were actually playing in Bratislava. He had a funny style of DJing back then, where he wouldn't necessarily mix or match tracks. He'd just kind of bait them into each other and see how they go.
You know, we'd never been on a tour before, so we were living the dream, and next we got off the wrong stop. So after about an hour, your man came and collected us in this little Volkswagen, and we were nearly killed getting to the gig, and then he goes, I'll drop you off to the hotel. And I remember walking up to the hotel with Barry saying, look at that place over there, imagine that was the hotel. And next when your man took a left, and in we went into this apartment block that was just full of junkies and drunken people falling around the place, and the lift wouldn't work. So we just went to the bar and drank till 1 o'clock the next day and got the train out there.
So the next day we're in Prague having dinner. Myself, John, and DJ Slavik, who was our Czech representative that week, and he was there with us, and a great DJ himself. And we were kind of talking to John about his performance the night before, when he announces to the two of us that he's not really a DJ, he's more of a producer. To which Lucas Slavik said, well, isn't your name DJ Johnny Pluse? And John looked at both of us and went, oh yeah.
But the reason I was saying that was I didn't have decks and I couldn't mix, so it was a bit of a disaster from my end.
I think that weekend John realised he's not into DJing, he's more into producing and then getting a live collective.
Yeah, on that tour I suppose I kind of realised that you can't just wing everything, that you have to put in a bit of practice if you're going to be mixing.
The label has been great at discovering new talent. The guys behind Breakdown and Irish Moss Records would have had their roots in Bulabeats as well. There's a couple of MCs that first came to my attention on the Bulabeats label. So, you know, it's when you get a Bulabeats record, it's usually a quality release, and it's usually something that you want to hear to see where the label is going next.
I guess for me, John was doing this at least 10 years before I was involved with it, and he had some experience in England and in Ireland, and since then I've started up a label with Jay from Dirty Dubsters.
So we are dance, we are tell you them gun, them no run things. All over the light, and we are blast them from a distance where I stand persistence.
We morphed into our own labels, sort of grew Irish Moss Records, and then Johnny went back to the Bulabeats to develop the Bulabeats further.
Got a lot of advice on digital distribution and physical distribution, records and sales and stuff like that from John.
And the highlight of Dusty Tones was definitely my last EP, which had reached #1 in the hip hop and the breakbeat charts in Juno. It's a really good thing for me because I was working hard and producing and to see my music grow to such heights has been really great, you know.
What we wanna know is where the party at.
From a press point of view, Johnny would stand out maybe to other people in that he'll always let you know when something is coming out, but he's never too pushy, and he's never kind of in your face, and he's never kind of trying to ram things down your throat. It's like, here's my record, do you like it, do you not like it? And you know, I've kind of built up a good relationship with him over the 10 years probably because of that. Also the consistent quality of the music and the high kind of standards there.
Hey, you, yeah, you. Don't test that stereo.
I don't really want to be a DJ, I just want to make music and be in a band and produce music live. So I started Johnnypluse and the Stormtroopers of Love recently, which is where I prefer to be, and it's less hassle as well. You don't get people asking for requests, and I like to be just behind all the equipment playing away and not having to worry about, geez, how am I going to mix this in, or I hope they like this. So I first met David in the toilet many moons ago, and then I also met John in the toilet. So we were shipped in from the start.
Two separate toilets though. Two separate. Not the same night.
Different nights.
Two different nights. Yeah.
Stormtroopers of Love is a really interesting project for Johnny, and to be honest, it's something that it's the route I saw him going down.
John, the drummer, I knew him through a mutual friend.
And he was in the urinal beside me, and he just kept going, he knew I was a drummer, and he just kept going, it's all about kick snare, kick snare, kick snare, and I was like, this is extremely weird.
Knew Dave because he used to DJ a lot with Jerry, who's Dusty Tonez, so that's how I met the two of them.
Yeah. Johnny picks up band members in toilets.
In toilets.
Yeah. I'd be always afraid when he goes to the urinals that one of us is
out. Who else is going to join the band?
For me, being there throughout the whole thing with John, it's nice to see him on stage with 2 or 3 other guys. I think he's much happier now that he doesn't have to mix records, and he has some fellas up there working with him.
I think this is a logical progression for where Johnny's sound always fitted, and that live thing will lend itself really, really well in the future to what he's doing. I have to say I'm very excited about that project, and I can't wait to hear what way it translates then.
There is nothing like the Stormtroopers of love out there right now. Nothing.
There's nothing that matches the mayhem.
No,
it's true.
So we are like stadium rock without the rock.
Yeah, or the stadium.
Alien invasion, spaceship chasing. I crashed a bike into a towpath station. I hopped up, where's my medication? My brain just snapped with no sedation. Bula 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 beats. Bula 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 beats. Bula 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 beats. Johnny Pluse from Trim, better kick the beat. Bula 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 beats.
The future of Bulabeats is looking bright. I've seen Johnny progress with the label recently, getting a lot more different versatile artists involved in the label, which it's grown really big now.
It's encouraging to see that it's lasted 10 years, that the music is still getting better after 10 years, that, you know, Johnny's love and passion for what he doesn't seem to have died off within that 10 years.
I would just say it's gonna evolve in it's just gonna get more crazy. Like literally putting it like that, it's just gonna get more crazy.
I think Bulabeats will certainly be at the centre of what goes on in the future of Irish dance music in particular, and after that the sky's the limit. Johnny's sound, and the label sound by extension, has always been so progressive. He's so far ahead of the curve. He's certainly not afraid to try different things and to experiment, which I think is absolutely crucial to the lifeblood of any kind of a scene.
So for Bulabeats to come along and sort of thrive within that underground scene, I think it's great. It's great for Irish music. It's great for encouraging other producers to make music. Bulabeats has shown that you can, in fact, make good music and run a good label from anywhere in the country.
I don't know how many countries I've been to around Europe where once they know I'm from Ireland, one of the first things they'll say to me in broken English is, do I know Johnny Pluse? And I don't know whether it's because they're huge fans of his or they just know that he's a crazy bastard, but either way they're asking about him and they know about him.
I'd like to push all types of music really, whether it be electronic or funk or Irish hip hop and stuff like that. Well, I'd like to see Bulabeats as like an XL Records where it does all types of music, but you might have to win the lotto for that, but I'd like to push a lot more Irish acts, and if there's anyone out there, give me a shout.
Bulabeats is always going to be a label close to my heart, and I think it's very, very relevant now, just as much as in the past.
It's been fun. It's good to see they've reached their 10 years of Bulabeats.
So, you know, roll on the next tail is what I say.
But it's just going to grow and grow and grow.
It's a great label that's definitely going places.
Title here.
Dying sun,
Bulabeats? I'd have to call them one of the most consistent labels out there when it comes to head nod fodder and funky beat business. To be honest, they've been jamming my inbox and filling my record crates for a good number of years now. Each release seems to raise a smile and rock a dance floor. What more can you ask for? Global crisis notwithstanding, extinction level events forthcoming, or mothball style attacks. If we don't have any of those, hopefully we'll have another glorious 10 years of Bulabeat business. Big up to Johnny and all the crew. In fact, now I might put on some Loop Mafia, get my head nod business on, and relax as God intended.